Story 1. I had a dream in which I was a criminal being executed. At the beginning of the execution, the platform fell forward, the executioners died, and I remained alive. Story 2. One I still think of sometimes is this. I was sitting with my wife and a couple of friends playing cards when I heard two plops on the table. I looked down and two of my fingertips were there, the left index and left ring. There was no blood and no pain. My hand looked like the nubs people have years after losing a finger in an accident. The detached fingertips still looked healthy, and the formerly attached ends appeared the same as my nubs, healed and sealed over with skin. I mentioned the calamity and said I needed to go to the hospital. My friend thought I was overreacting since there was no blood and no pain. My wife reluctantly took me in. The dream cut to the hospital where a couple of doctors just shrugged and said, "Well, if there is no pain, we do not see a problem." Then I woke up. Story 3. I had a dream about a book series that I am 99.9% sure does not exist. I have researched it extensively, so I plan to write it. Story 4. I was watching a football game in the yard outside my childhood home. One team featured Fraser Crane as the star player. The other team's star was Jesus Christ, wearing a white gown and sandals. Jesus was unstoppable. He ran a sweep to the right and, once he hit the corner, he was gone, scoring a touchdown on every play. Fraser Crane threw a touchdown pass to my cousin on each play. The dream ended before the game was over, so I would have liked to keep watching to see if anyone could tackle Jesus or sack Mr. Crane. Story 5. Any dream about falling in love? I once dreamed of reconnecting with my first love. It was going great, but then I wondered whether it was all a dream. I woke up distraught and felt awful, but then there she was and we were back together. It was so uplifting until I actually woke up. What a way to play with your own emotions. Story 6. I was stranded on an island. The dream felt like it lasted several days, so I wanted to go back to sleep to see whether I would survive. I had the dream again. I survived, escaped on a boat, and found a giant cargo ship. I remember screaming, "Hey, boat!" over and over. Then it cut to me walking around the ship. It was odd but interesting. Story 7. I was in the living room playing a cello in front of my family. I was playing the Pirates of the Caribbean theme and it sounded like a full-blown orchestra. As I reached the end, I woke up smiling from the dream, and now I feel sad. It sounded so good. Story 8. I have many dreams about my grandfather, who raised me. At first they upset me because I could never return to them or control when they occurred, but eventually I learned to appreciate them. He passed away more than 20 years ago, but it is nice to see him now and then, even if only in my dreams. Story 9. I do it all the time. Last night I dreamed I was on a luxurious cruise ship with my husband and friends. We were hanging out in different bars and went out on deck to watch the ship arrive at a tropical port. It was great, but I woke up before I knew where we were. I think that was the point of the dream. I am happy and secure but have no idea where the ship is going. The ship represents life or the world, I guess. Story 10. Yes, I dreamt I had a hot girlfriend. I was cuddling her in the bathroom, which was bizarre, and was about to say I love you when I woke up. Felt so real. I could not get back to the dream, though. Story 11. I have two recurring dreams, probably half a dozen times each, and every time I wake up mid-story. In one, I have all the powers of Spider-Man and I have to fight armies of demons and orcs emerging from a crack in the earth. These dreams are always amazing. Very cinematic Marvel Cinematic Universe-style combat in urban environments against Hellspawn, alongside special weapons and tactics officers and similar personnel. They always feel so real. In the other, Abraham Lincoln shows up and flies like Superman. Once or twice I have ridden on his back while he flew. That is the whole dream. I never know what it is supposed to be about. Story 12. I have only had 4 sexual dreams, and I wish I could return to any of them. Story 13. I was a detective in the 1960s, chasing a man who killed women while they were home alone, including my wife on the night I stayed back at the cop shop working on his case. I found the warehouse where he lived. He had taped his trophies, the hair of his victims, to the back wall. My wife's ponytail, her bright red hair, was taped to the dirty concrete. I raised my gun at him and told him it was over. He smiled at me with rotting teeth. It is over. I am going to wake you up. When you wake up, you will disappear and I will kill again. Perhaps I will pay your daughter a visit. I tried to ask him what he meant, but then I woke up in my bedroom. Story 14. In the dream, my girl and I are doing something routine and ordinary, perhaps shopping, driving, or cooking. It is always something mundane, but knowing she is there fills me with overwhelming love and joy. I always reach out to tell her that I am in love with her, that this small moment, though insignificant, is amazing to me because she is there and because we are together and happy. I go to say these words, but every time all that comes out of my mouth is, "I'm sorry." She turns to look at me, and that is when I always wake up, startled, words choking in my throat, heartbroken. The rest of the day is a gray blur, slow as it happens but hazy when I think back on it. I go through the ritual of daily life, smiling when I am supposed to smile so no one asks if something is wrong. I have endured this for a decade. She is gone forever, and I think I will be cursed with that dream until I die. Story 15. I used to dream about nuclear war and the aftermath a lot. In one dream, the bombs had fallen and vehicles were gone because there was no gas, so I was walking in Minneapolis. All the buildings were boarded up and there were people everywhere. At the head of an alley, there was a fence and people were gathered to watch an entertainer. I stood there and a man with a long beard wearing a robe came out from behind the fence and started dancing. It was more like Tai Chi, but I noticed that when he moved his arms or legs, there was a barely visible blue flame trailing behind. It was beautiful and he was not being hurt by it. Then I looked down and there was a basket of puppies, but they were on fire with the same blue flames and they were being harmed by it, but slowly and silently. I looked around and no one else seemed to notice. I tried to put it out and could not and had to watch them all die. Then the dancer went back behind the fence into the alley. Then I knew something, as in dreams when you do not hear a voice but just know it. The man was Jesus, and since he could not suffer and die again, everyone would have to suffer smaller things. All that suffering would make up for our sins and redeem us. Watching puppies burn to death was my suffering. I woke up wanting to go into the alley and say what the hell. Story 16. I nearly checkmated Kasparov in a chess game, only to be woken by the alarm. Story 17. I involuntarily lucid dream. For me, lucid dreaming is triggered by nightmares. Everything feels too outlandish and I realize I am dreaming as the dead are killing and eating my friends and neighbors. I then fly away but usually wake up shortly afterward. It is frustrating. Story 18. I once had an incredibly vivid dream that I was on a bus and a few rows in front of me sat my grandfather, who had died several years earlier. I was looking at him and hoping that it was really him when he turned to look at me and winked in his particular way, something he always did. I stood up to sit closer to him and we were just about to start talking when I woke up. I tried so desperately to go back to sleep and have that conversation with him, but it never happened. I do not believe that he was visiting me. Rather, my brain created something I would dearly love. It is a nice thought. I probably had this dream 10 years ago or maybe more, and I still regularly think about it. Story 19. I have a migraine disorder, so anytime I hit my head, even lightly, it causes a severe migraine with mild hallucinations. I never have hallucinations otherwise. The hallucinations are always interesting. My favorite was when I was about 16 and I literally woke up thinking, "Steve. Where's Steve?" I thought for a good minute that I was an Avenger. Story 20. I had a dream that I woke up in the middle of the sea on a warship and thought my real life had been a dream. Then I learned that we had won a war in my country and were returning home. I met a female soldier on the ship. We got along very well. When we arrived, oddly, it was Norway in the 1890s. I am from Turkey, but in the dream my country was Norway. I was overjoyed to be there. I met more people on the warship. Some of them became my best friends. I will not explain the whole story, but basically I married the woman I had met, had children, kept my friends, and lived a happy life. I fought in some more wars but managed to survive them all. Then I woke up and found myself back in my miserable life. Story 21. I spent time with my dad, who died recently. riding around the farm and talking about life. Story 22. I had a dream a while back in which I was in a train station talking to Metal Face Doom. We talked for a bit before a train pulled up. He got up and said, "This is my ride." We fist bumped, and then he said, "Just remember, everything is bullshit." My alarm went off just as he walked through the door. Story 23. Have you ever woken up in the middle of a dream that was so interesting you wanted to go back to sleep to see how it ended? Oh my God. Finally, an AskReddit thread I can answer. This is so relatable. So, what was the dream? Fuck. Story 24. I was abducted by aliens and sent to Venus. They told me to find ancient artifacts to prove their existence. Story 25. I used to be able to do this. As a child, I would have very bad nightmares and wake up at a critical point, just about to be killed or in a similar situation. I would then think of the most ridiculous way out of the scenario, force myself back to sleep, and finish the dream with that solution. I was a strange child. Story 26. I was a traveling salesman going door to door. I had no real success until I knocked on the door of a comely red-headed woman in a very tight workout outfit. Things started to look up when she invited me in. They improved further when, a short time later, we were rolling around on the floor, making out and half naked. Then suddenly I heard the door open and someone shout, "Wendy, what are you doing?" I looked up and saw Dave Thomas, the founder of Wendy's. I woke up and laughed out loud. Story 27. I had a dream once that I was playing The Legend of Zelda. Twilight Princess as Wolf Link, but I was the wolf. It was really cool. I found a new area and ended up doing a mini-boss fight against Zant. I could do many different moves than I could in the game, and I ended up beating Zant only for him to try to run away. I wasn't going to let him get away, but I woke up and never learned what happened next. I beat the game itself a couple of days after the dream. It remains my favorite Zelda game. Story 28. Oh yeah, I was kissing Daniel Radcliffe. I laughed out loud. It was amazing. Story 29. I once had a dream that I spent 300 pounds in Zara and was so panicked when I woke up that I went back to sleep to try to return it. Story 30. I constantly dream about a plane crash landing in my backyard and the government telling me that it is my problem now. I turn it into a multifunctional man cave with a theater, a reloading bench, a gaming area, and a bar, the whole works. Then my neighbor sues me for some reason, and every time I go to fight it I wake up. It is frustrating because I never get closure. Did I get to keep the man cave? Story 31. I experience this every morning. Each night I go on exciting but exhausting adventures, and when I wake up I need time to process. I have often wondered whether this is why I never feel rested. Story 32. I was boarding a strange plane with some family. After takeoff, the inexperienced pilot flew too low for reasons I do not remember. We crashed. Some people died, but I survived. The moment I fell looked like a scene from National Geographic. I lost the use of my legs and had to use a wheelchair. I had a hard time getting up the porch though. When I managed to stand, I woke up. I want to know what happened next, but I never returned to that dream. Story 33. I woke up halfway through an Agatha Christie-style murder mystery. I still don't know whether the identity of the killer is locked in my subconscious somewhere, or whether I pulled a Lost on myself and created a mystery without knowing how to wrap it up. Story 34. I'm late to the post, but I need to share this. I had a partner. We'd been together for decades and had a genuinely fulfilling life. Children, a home, friends. Felt almost fantastical. We'd played a small but meaningful role in saving the world. Not main characters, but we had helped. Then I discovered something horrible. I have no idea what it was, but it sent us all back in time to when we had first met, back to when the world was still under threat. In my anger, I denounced my partner publicly to a good friend of ours who was someone important, a captain of the guard or a local director. They denied it at first, but there were recordings of our lives from before time had gone back, things that had been saved somehow. Eventually, they admitted to what I accused them of. At that moment, I was hit by an overwhelming wave of terror that I was making a mistake. Even now, years after the dream, I remember screaming in fear and rushing to their side. even though every other detail has faded. As I held them, I remember memories running through my head, but I do not remember what any of them are, and that is the part that has made me desperate to go back. Before I woke, my partner leaned in close and whispered in my ear, not in their voice but in the voice of the trickster god we had defeated before time reversed, and they laughed. The last thing I heard before jerking awake was that I had given up everything and they had finally won. I woke up drenched in sweat, terrified, with a horrible pain in my chest. The scariest thing was knowing that those fading memories were signs that the trickster god was erasing the life I had had. Our children, our friends, everything. As the dream faded, I realized I was forgetting the details. By the time I started writing it down, I could not remember the names of the children I had once vividly recalled, or my partner, or what they looked like. All I remember is that I could not forget, because if I forgot, I would never be able to undo what he had done. Years later, I still do not remember. Every few months I remember that I still do not know, and it takes me days to get over it. I hope one day I will have the dream again and remember another detail. Story 35. Dreams in which I can fly and that involve sex. What do you suppose that says about me? Thanks. Story 36. A few times I have gotten women into bed, or ready for sexual encounters, and as soon as it seems like it will actually happen, I wake up every time. Story 37. One time I woke up just before taking the first bite of the most delicious burger I had ever seen. I was sitting with my mouth open and my hands in the air as if I were holding the burger when I woke up. I closed my eyes and tried to bite anyway because it looked so good. Story 38. Last night I dreamed I turned into a dragon and used my newly acquired draconic nature to fly around the globe and explore in a Tolkien-like adventure epic. To be a mighty beast would be amazing. Yes, I am aware how science would want to take me apart, but can a dragon dream? Story 39. I had a dream that was entirely in stained glass. The whole scene was a kaleidoscope of colors with dragons, battles, and a magnificent ball with a queen in red. That is where I woke up. I have never had a dream like this before or since. There was another dream that seemed to be a mid-apocalypse situation with monsters. I was being cared for by military-type personnel after they found me wandering snowy woods. The most fascinating part was a faceless samurai in red. He was not on my group side, but he was not a direct threat either. I was certain I knew him. I was not worried. I really want to know how it ends. But I have never had this one again either. Story 40. Aliens like xenomorphs attacked a space station, and several other scientists and I were holding them off. It was incredible. We hid in air ducts and devised a plan to decompress the station to blow the xenomorphs into space. Then I woke up, furious that I did not get to see how the story ended. It was far better than the recent movies. Story 41. My dream began with me walking down the street in the pouring rain at night. I saw a book on the ground and picked it up. The cover showed a cat and a mouse. The dream then cut to me with the cat and mouse. They spoke to me as if we were friends. We were still on the sidewalk when a zombie approached. We ran to a small shed, grabbed guns, and turned to face the oncoming zombies. Then I woke up. I did not make this up. It was an actual dream. Story 42. My brother turned out to be a mafia boss. Cue 3 days of running from his goons, culminating in a climactic battle in a Target parking lot. Then I woke up right before the reveal of who won. Fuck you, brain. Story 43. I was escaping Bourne Supremacy style from a factory, driving a truck while Matt Damon tried to sew my little finger back on. Story 44. In a beautiful city with an Art Nouveau aesthetic, I was the male lover of a detective, also male, who went missing without a trace. I was also an investigator working with him, but I was either his subordinate or less experienced. When my beloved disappeared, I continued his investigations across the city, talking with the same witnesses and trying to solve not only his mysterious disappearance but also the case he had been originally working on. My progress alternated with sepia-colored flashbacks of him being in the same places and having the same conversations. I narrate my inner monologue through all of this, explaining my progress, how I miss him, and how I hope he is still alive while growing more and more depressed. I received a tip about an abandoned mine and factory just outside the city, on a hillside resembling the cliffs of Dover. A still-functioning railroad track led to it, crawling along the cliffs on a steep trail and turning at one point. I could not imagine how a steam locomotive and its carriages managed it. The railroad ended in a station carved into the cliffside. From the outside it looked like those three-faced Buddhist goddess statues, but more Art Deco. Only the head was carved into the cliff, the front-facing face watching over the city with its glass eyes, which were actually enormous windows for the train station. The deep indigo blue of the glass was due to the mineral mined and processed in the factory. The train entered the station through the eye socket of the right face, which was still glazed. The glass of that eye functioned as a gate and could slide into the wall to allow the train to enter. To reach the top of the hill where the archaic, decrepit wooden buildings of the mine were, one had to take a futuristic elevator. While on the train to the Goddess Head station, I had a vivid non-sepia flashback of my lover fighting, fencing no less, with someone on the roofs of the wagons. Then my alarm clock blared. I had a lesson, I should get up, but I needed to know what happened. I flopped back into bed, and in the dream I grabbed the manga I had been reading and flipped through the pages, speed reading to the end. There should be a fuller account of the battle on the wagons, the narrator's arrival at the mine where he, no longer I because my alarm forced a perspective shift, found his lover's body, and a fire my original dream avatar set to destroy the group of killers waiting there to silence him. I am not sure whether my avatar survived. The details are fuzzy. I had to know the intended ending. It was my craziest dream experience ever. Story 45. I always get very vivid dreams. This is the one that fits the question best. In the dream, some kind of new ice age had changed civilization as we knew it, burying all previous settlements in snow and ice. The people who remained lived in small isolated communities in giant semi-subterranean domes, made of thick glass in the center and concrete bunkers around the edges. A vital delivery or communication had been interrupted between my settlement and the next nearest one, about a month's walk away. The man I loved in the dream, who was a ranger familiar with the hostile, icy lands, had volunteered to go to the other settlement 6 months earlier to find out what was going on, but he had not returned. In the time between his leaving and the present, I had become pregnant with his child and had the baby, something he did not know, and I was beginning to give up hope of seeing him again. When I took the child to the government offices to register for extra rations, I discovered that the Dome government was part of a regime or cult that had been blocking communications to hide the fact that the other Dome communities planned to form a better, safer community in a fabled warm spot. By doing this, the cult had absolute control over our Dome and its citizens. The man I loved had discovered the truth and left for the other Dome on a secret mission to get help, but the government had been sending out armed patrols to prevent his return. I returned home and was later awakened at night by a firefight near the Dome between government officials and the party the man I loved led. I ran out into the cold and saw him across the snow. A shot rang out, but I woke up before I could find out if it hit him or me. I wish I knew how it ended. Story 46. No, I had the opposite experience last night. I kept having the same lucid dream repeatedly. In the dream I was aware that I was dreaming and could control it somewhat, but my dream self was scared and would wake up as soon as he realized it was a dream. It was very frustrating because my awake self just wanted to sleep, and the episode disrupted my already poor sleep cycle. Story 47. This question makes me regret never having written down any of my dreams. That could have been a Reddit karma treasure trove. Maybe I could even have sold them to Hollywood. Story 48. I'm a lucid dreamer, so this happens to me almost daily. My most common recurring dream is a nightmare. There is always something trying to get me, and I have to sneak around and hide to avoid being murdered or assaulted. Sometimes I run into people who want to turn me over to the bad guys. Sometimes I meet people who want to help. I have become familiar with these people, and if I ever come across them again, I know I can trust them. I also remember certain places. I have learned how to navigate them and can locate all the secret doors and pathways in those settings. I know my way around houses and neighborhoods, and I know where my hideouts are. Since I am lucid throughout, if things get bad, I can will things into existence. If I concentrate just right, I can fly or teleport. I can feel every part of it. Feels incredible. If I wake up in the middle of one of those dreams, I usually try to go back to sleep to finish it because I love how it feels even when it is scary. The only times I do not want to go back are when I have woken myself up because I was about to be killed or assaulted. Sometimes on my days off, I take multiple naps a day just so I can dream in that world more. Story 49. I was making rattlesnake cookies using rattlesnake meat, sugar, and lots of peanut butter in case you were wondering, but I never got to bake or eat them. It might have been interesting. Story 50. This happened to me this morning. I was planning some kind of assassination heist. I had this really cool utility belt, and the crew I was with, 2 men and a woman with a hangover from 3,4-methylenedioxymethamphetamine, were helping me organize my knives, multi-tool, wire rope, and other assorted knickknacks of the trade. We were just heading out the door into a beautiful sunny day when I woke up. I have no idea who the target was. I tried to get back to it, but it was gone. Story 51. I would not say it was interesting per se, but at the time I was going through a rough period in my life and I dreamed of a life. I was married to a woman I had never met, living in a nice house with some family members present. There was more, but I do not remember it all. It was enough to sadden me so much when I woke up because I was genuinely happy. Story 52. It's not particularly interesting, just a much better reality. My mum passed away from cancer at 62, 4 years ago tomorrow. Every so often I dream that she has fully recovered and is perfectly healthy. In the dream I ask her, "Are you sure you are not dead?" She assures me she got better. I believe her, and for an instant after I wake up I feel like she is still there. Then it hits me that she is really gone. Story 53. In every sexual dream, I am so responsible that I always put on a condom before sex. Usually, finding and putting on the condom takes so long in the dream that I wake up before sex happens. I guess I do not want to get sexually transmitted infections in my dream. I've heard they are pretty serious. Story 54. I am a lucid dreamer who experiences lucid dreams every night. Mornings are tough. Story 55. Yes. I won a dance competition and kissed the girl I was dancing with. I did not want to go back to sleep because I enjoyed dancing and found the girl very attractive. Story 56. In detoxification, I had vivid dreams about picking up drugs and taking alprazolam and oxycodone, but I always woke up right before the high began. I could not fall back asleep quickly enough. Story 57. I attended a job interview in an elegant building that combined the appearance of a country house with a modern facility. The interview focused on questions about me, my work, and my opinions. The job itself was not discussed. Afterwards, we left the building and walked up a hill overlooking a busy, modern train station. The interviewer told me I had passed and handed me a piece of paper with a telephone number, which I watched him write. I woke up and, in a rush, dialed the first 5 digits on my phone, but I could not remember the rest of the number. Story 58. I vaguely remember this dream. The world was total chaos, and the city was on fire. Somehow a group of people and I were able to escape. We were all on a bus, and a woman next to me said everything would be okay and cuddled with me. Then I woke up. Story 59. I was dreaming about a witch girl, about 12 to 14 years old. She had to move away with her mother because she no longer had a father. The memory is slipping as I write this, but the mother had been carrying around a strange monkey, toy with long arms. I cannot grasp the memory, but the mother said the father had been killed or had died. Because the mother was a witch, she bound the father's soul to the toy, and the girl began carrying it. I want to know what happened and what will happen. Story 60. I spent a lot of time preparing a domino effect, protecting it from nearby children playing with a ball, a random dog trying its best to ruin it, and my sister insisting it was ready and that she wanted to set it off. When it was finally ready and I was about to set it off, I woke up. Story 61. I entered a competition where teams of 3 would go to the beach and ride jet skis to grab flags on the water. How did the cups holding the flags not flip over? I do not know. Whichever team got the most flags would win. It was a pretty cool dream, but my mom woke me up, and then I proceeded to perish my mom. Story 62. Once I dreamed I could fly, but only when my life was in danger. I decided to start fighting the mob like early 20th century gangsters. I do not know why they were there, but they put me in danger often. Then I could fly. It was so much fun that I kept doing it 3 or 4 times until I woke up. I have always wanted to go back and fly more. It felt surreal and peaceful to be able to fly away from danger. Story 63. Once I figured out how to control my dreams, I could dream anything I wanted. I'm too embarrassed to say what. It was cheesy and involved a crush on a celebrity that would be embarrassing to admit. I dreamed that my crush and I spent every day together, went to the beach, rode motorcycles, and so on. Story 64. I had a sweet boyfriend who made me feel cared for. Story 65. A little off topic. My friend had a dream in which he was with 2 other people, and they realized that one of them was dreaming but did not know who it was. Before the dream ended, they all promised to remember each other. As far as I know, he does not remember them. Story 66. I was at some kind of event and I met a guy. We clicked really well, in fact. We talked for hours, and eventually I woke up right after we kissed. I went back to sleep and it continued, but I couldn't find him. He'd left or something. I couldn't remember his name, only what he looked like. I'd never felt as safe and comfortable as I did with the dream guy. I spent the next 5 or so dream hours asking about him and trying to find him. I knew it was a dream, but honestly I just wanted to spend a little longer with him. Story 67. When I start having a sex dream, I always wake up before I have a chance to take off my clothes. It is irritating knowing that it could have been awesome. The other dreams I wish would not end are the end of the world dreams. Story 68. I was in a cross between Dungeons and Dragons, Breath of the Wild, and an anime role-playing game. I was like, let me in. Story 69. My answer is the opposite of what you asked, but I think it fits. One night I dreamt I smoked half a blunt. I did not think anything of it until the next night, when I dreamt I smoked the other half. Story 70. I had so many of those, but I can't remember them clearly. The funny thing about my dreams is that they come back after a few years and continue the story. The first time a dream repeated itself, I thought in the dream, okay, that's kind of creepy. Wait, that seems familiar. Oh right, that was a dream I had in elementary school. That didn't happen before. Since then, at least 4 dreams have repeated themselves. Postscript. I don't know if my last dream was one of those. The fact that all my classmates and some old friends were in it was too intense. Story 71. Yes, in fact I remember it vividly. At the end it felt like leaving a game. I felt my actual body and sensed that my eyes had been closed. I was driving away with my younger sister and my dad, panicking because my older sister from an alternate dimension was chasing us, and we had to get out of that dimension quickly. Story 72. I saw a purple tent at the top of a mountain. I was walking on the clouds. It was bizarre, but everything felt real and made sense then. I'm sure there was more, but this is all I can recall. Story 73. A girl I had a crush on and I were having sex all over the planet. Felt like a wet dream. In the back of cars, in hotels, on mountain ranges, and in other places. Everything felt surreal. I could feel her lips when we kissed, at least as I imagined them, her silky skin and everything else. We were about to do it on the international space station, a personal lifelong dream of mine. I had always wanted to have sex somewhere other than Earth. So I thought, hell yes, let's go. We were waiting in line and she said she was going to be on top and wanted me to be submissive while she did her thing. I woke up. I was so angry. I thought, damn brain, can't a man have sex in space before I wake up? Story 74. I do not dream anymore. I usually wake up in cold sweats every hour. Story 75. Recently I dreamed about my dog, who passed away at Christmas 2020. He was sleeping next to me and licked my face, which woke me in my dream. Then I woke up for real. I wasn't ready to cry again, so I went back to sleep. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.